Look, a couple of weeks ago, I made this post about Ali Abdaal, and it went viral. A lot of people who used to be fans of his rushed to the comments, and I find this really interesting. Daniel says, Ali is making the same video over and over again, just how to make more money. Content feels repetitive. A lot of their content is stuff that you can just ask AI now. GPT is basically 24/7 Ali Abdaal in your pocket. You wouldn't make that same comment about Alex Hormozi. The obvious way of reading the situation is that Ali just got worse at making content. But I don't think that is the case. They're not saying his videos are bad. They are saying they are replaceable. But what does the data say? And so I went a step further. I built a tool that does an in-depth data check on a video idea, and I ran Ali's videos through it to see what exactly went wrong. Here is the output. His video title is The Cost of Getting Rich, and already it raises some really good points based on the data. I mean, there is no proof anchor or reason to trust him in the promise. Just one example is Danko's very similar video, which massively underperformed for him. Look, this video in particular lives in a cluster of content that wins by having very specific proof, age, dollar figures, timeframes, identities. But he didn't know this. And so when making this video, he spent his time on the parts that just didn't matter to the audience. And this very basic way of checking data would have told him not to make it at all. Look, all of this data just says everything the comments already said. Just to prove that this isn't a fluke, I ran it again and again and again. This is another one of his videos that absolutely flopped recently. The simplest way to make $10,000 a month. And these same red flags just keep coming back. The promise is extraordinarily saturated. In fact, it's actually the single most cloned claim in this entire dataset. And people who resonate with this claim want a unique solution or a unique path to achieve that goal. The actual video goes over a very basic, very repeated path to get to that goal. The top performers within this promise are building AI agencies, or learning a skill like copywriting, building a SaaS, or dropshipping. As this video is competing over a get-rich-quick audience, would they prefer to have all of these very flashy, shiny objects, or would they prefer this very basic theory? The data makes it clear that they want the former. And this is all the same point that the comments were making. Look, his titles imply the videos aren't any more sophisticated in knowledge or info or access than anything else in the niche. They're not more novel or more original. They're not even more deep or more valuable. Nothing differentiates these videos from anyone else's. The cost of getting rich. What's the point? You only need a phone. People know you only need a phone to start a YouTube channel. People know there is a cost of getting rich. Look, none of this is a unique take or angle. And here's the part of this that matters. It's not the viewers deciding whether you get reach. It's YouTube. It is unclear why YouTube should promote any one of these videos over another one in the same niche for the same target audience that just has so much more trust and data. And its titles give the algorithm no reason to pick them instead of another video that is more proven. He's relying on the fact that his video is just simply more recent, maybe his production quality is slightly better, and that he has some form of returning audience to push him to maybe 50, 60,000 views. And there's a clear way to solve all of this. We've shown what the audience has said and what the data says, even what his titles are signaling to the audience and the algorithm. And so it makes total sense why his recent videos are completely flat on the surface. But if we want to understand why this problem exists at all, we have to look at what a video idea actually is. In fact, these are all of the ingredients behind a video that I put together. Every one of these ingredients has the ability on its own to pull that video to virality. Now, I won't go over all of these in detail, but I'll give you a glimpse at a few. Something more important is the zeitgeist, the latent demand and the timing of making that claim. At the start of the year, the promise of, how to redefine yourselves and how to set goals and be productive is more prevalent than ever. And understanding that timing and reading the market in that way is critical. We also have originality versus competition, and this isn't just an emergent property from viewers preferring a certain creator over another. No, this is actually something that YouTube measures themselves. And so look at your transcript and try to find objective ways that you are different than your competition. Maybe you're going slightly deeper in the subject and you're providing more value. Maybe you're wording it in a completely different format. And so, instead of showing how to be productive, maybe it's a challenge across 90 days. Another very important point on here is the sophistication level of your video. What prerequisite knowledge does the viewer need to engage with your content? In fact, you'd actually enjoy his content more if you didn't watch other videos in this niche. And so you actually kind of found the things he was saying more new and interesting because you haven't heard them before. But that's not who YouTube is sending his videos to. Because right now, as he is struggling to break out of his returning audience, the people seeing his content have already watched hundreds of videos in this niche before. And so the base level of advice he gives just isn't interesting enough for them to stick around. It is a shame that the only ingredient he is using here is the topic. And unfortunately, that is the only one that stops working when an audience matures. Ali succeeded at a time where you could just sell a topic. Back when there weren't actually relatively that many videos on the platform at all, you could get views just based on having a novel topic. But right now, and as the comments earlier said, this audience has seen these typical topics and formats so many times that they're just burned out on them. To get recommended his videos, these audiences have traveled through productivity, the side hustle niche, get rich in your 20s, all of these pockets of YouTube where, they're exhausted by the typical promises being given. Maybe they've even lost trust in a lot of these mechanisms or ways of achieving these goals. And so nowadays it takes a lot more than just bringing a brand new topic to a space to get them to trust your claims again. And this all comes down to the fact that his audience, his niche has leveled up, but his playbook hasn't. Look, I know what an Alex Hormozi video is, and regardless of what promise he's making or what topic he's using, it's very clear why that video is going to be different than other videos in that same niche. So what actually is an Ali Abdaal video? Is it a talking head with this sudden threshold of research? I genuinely don't know. I can't answer that. The closest thing I can get to answering it is that he makes productivity content. But once again, that's a topic. That is not the format. That is not what makes an Ali Abdaal video his. A topic is a commodity. Now look, it hasn't always been this way. His old videos, some of his most popular videos were built around him, and they do a lot of these things really well. In fact, his most viewed videos all have the same form of unique take or authority. These videos clearly were built for Ali. 9 passive income ideas, how I make $27,000 per week. How I type really fast, 156 words per minute. Every one of these has a specific named and embedded authority. The topics are generic, passive income, note-taking. These videos won because of the other ingredients, the proof, the mechanism, the embedded identity, the originality of information. And so if I were him, I would list what made those videos uniquely his, and I would require every new idea to go through the data check and to be objectively built around him. And this brings me to my final point. There's this idea that I've been playing with for a while. On YouTube, you need to do cool things and then talk about them. And that doing part is half of the work. Now, Ali has done some really cool things. And anytime his channel has done well, it's by him talking about those things. But he's spending a lot of his time talking about things which he actually just doesn't have the authority to speak about. Channels don't die when the audience stops watching. They die when the creator stops being the only person who could have made this video.